would you say, Isaac, that the prayer movement is that around the need to overthrow or to like kick out the residual powers and principalities? I mean, because at the end of Ephesians, basically Paul's like, you're going to have a fight on your hands. He's just like,
Mhm.
there's all these powers, and you're gonna need all this armor, and then you're gonna need to pray, pray, pray. He has that passage where he says, pray over and over again, pray in the Spirit, pray in all occasions. So it does feel like a warfare kind of prayer. Yeah, is that what you find? Like, because if you, that's very helpful to think about. Okay, we have all these people that are basically supposed to they're supposed to be a part of the kingdom of God. They're supposed to be obedient to Jesus. They are sort of the ruling or the equipping like elements of the church, but they're locked in the kingdom of darkness right now, and so we're praying for their release. I mean, is that the kind of prayer? Like, what is the purpose of prayer? How do you organize that or think about that in that really early stage of a movement before anything really takes off?
Um, I would say yes with the powers and principalities, but I'd be careful there because if you, uh, this is an issue that I've had and spoken often in the prayer movement, is if we fit like the prayer movement would be like the Air Force.
Okay.
And then the apostolic and evangelistic movement are the ground forces, right?
Yeah.
And the prayer movement, I would say, is under the prophetic function. It's
Okay.
under, the foundation of the church is on apostles and prophets, right?
Okay.
And let's put the intercession or prayer movement under the prophetic gifting, under the prophetic establishment, because usually prayer people are very prophetic and vice versa. Prophetic people are very prayerful. It usually goes together. Um, and so the Air Force, like right now, there's a war in Israel, and their basic strategy is pound the areas and then send in the ground forces. If they send in the ground forces before pounding the areas, the ground forces are going to get pummeled. But if they only use the Air Force without sending the ground force, which is what they've done for years, the enemy just regroups and actually gets angrier.
Mm.
So the ground forces and the Air Force need to operate together. So prayer movements and apostolic movements need to operate together. They can't operate separately. A prayer movement that's not concentrated on apostolic ground forces is ultimately going to destroy things that are just going to be recreated because in order to when you overthrow one government you have to establish another, and if you overthrow a government and you don't establish another, then you're creating a vacuum of power. And that's what happened with ISIS, is that you had basically the Arab Spring caused the overthrow of the Assad regime in Syria and many of the territories. And the intentional purpose of it was not to create ISIS. The intentional purpose of the overthrow of Assad and those regimes was to create a Kurdish autonomous region, maybe the military of Syria, which was more secular, the Free Syrian Army would come in and create a more democratic rule. But what happened is that those smaller forces did not have a unified plan to create a new culture,
Mm.
and ISIS did. So all that vacuum of power that was over when Assad's government got overthrown, and also parts of Iraq were overthrown when Saddam got overthrown. All those pockets of vacuums of power that had no reestablished authority, ISIS came in and grabbed that vacuum of power. And so we have to be very careful when we overthrow one, like the powers and principalities of the air, that we don't have a plan to create. Otherwise, we're creating a vacuum of power. And that's basically what Shua said when he said, when you cast out a demon and you don't bring, you don't bring his spirit in, you get seven more.
Mm.
Basically, what he's talking about is a vacuum of power.